As we read Psalm 23, I challenge you this morning to think of yourself maybe driving in the car, or maybe you're walking to a worship service like they often do in Africa, sometimes an hour or 2 or 3 to get to a place that they're going to worship. And as you're walking or driving, you're preparing yourself for that meeting with God, and you start singing. And this is one of the songs you sing as you think about what it's going to be like to worship the living God. Or for those of you that journal, you're sitting at the end of the day and you've got your journal open and you're thinking to yourself, how could I describe this relationship I have with God? What could I say about who God is to me and how He meets me day in and day out? What will I write down in my journal tonight? Or maybe better yet, you're sitting across the table from somebody and you're trying to tell them how real God is to you, what He has done for you, why it is that you are a follower of Jesus, and you're trying to put it into words. Listen to this particular psalm in that context. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for You are with me. Your rod and Your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This is the word of the Lord. As I was thinking and preparing for the sermon this week, I was reminded especially of songs and singing songs. Most of these psalms, 150 psalms, were songs that people sang. In fact, Jesus Himself would have sung some of these psalms with His disciples. If you'll read about their upper room visit, the communion service that He started that night, they sang a hymn or a song, and then they went to the Garden of Gethsemane after that. These are special songs, songs of faith, songs that people sang going up to the temple and coming back down to their ordinary lives. They were songs they would have sung in worship. They were songs in the synagogue or in family gatherings that were about serving God. This is the hymnody or the spiritual singing that Israel was a part of for thousands of years and still is today. I was thinking about my own family. Unlike most of our teenagers today, when we were driving in the car, we weren't on an iPhone or an iPad. We would start singing. I was the baby of 6 kids. We would all pile into a car, and if we were going on a trip, we would sing as we drove along. We would tell stories. We would share jokes. We would kind of have some kind of fellowship, and sometimes we'd fuss and fight, and Mom and Dad would have to get on to us. But I want to focus on the singing part. In fact, even as a now 57-year-old, just the other day, Reese, Ethan, Cindy, and I were in the car going to Lawton. Guess what we did all the way from Altus to Lawton? We sang, "Be Thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross. When I survey the wondrous cross." These are songs that we know and love and that speak so beautifully of our relationship with God. And all the way to Lawton, our family was singing. This psalm this morning I want you to hear in the context of singing, not a choir singing, but you singing. You singing it to God. Very personal, very real. A psalm that brings meaning and purpose and focus to your life. I want you to hear this psalm in the context of a testimony. How can I tell people who God is? Let me try and put it in words. And David manages to put together this psalm as a testimony of who God is in his life. This is a wonderful prayer. This is David pouring his heart out to God and saying to him, God, you are my shepherd, and I know what shepherds are. David was the least of his clan, of his brothers and sisters. He was the one who got the privilege of hanging out in the field day and night with the sheep. And it wasn't a small job, it was a big job because the sheep were their livelihood. Dad had given him the assignment to watch over those sheep and make sure you don't lose one. For many families, their livestock could make the difference between surviving a winter or not. Some families literally would bury their children because the winters were too hard and they wouldn't have enough to survive. We seldom think on that level. Am I going to survive the winter? But many families in those days did. It was hard to take another person into your family because another mouth to feed could mean the difference between surviving the winter or not. David, you make sure you watch over our sheep and you better not lose one. Yes, Dad. Day and night. Now, watching sheep's not most exciting work, okay? You sit out there and the sheep are out eating. And if there's not good pasture, you've got to gather them up and move them to a spot where they can have enough to eat. When there's been good rains, maybe in the spring and so on, it's a little easier. Once it starts drying out, especially in the Middle East, you've got to hunt for good green pasture. But a good shepherd knows how to take them and make sure they get enough for the day. And then in that hot, arid area, water is scarce. And so you've then got to take them to a well or to a little creek, most times far away, not like Oklahoma. Yeah, there are farm ponds everywhere. Yeah, there are creeks everywhere. But go to the Middle East, there are not creeks everywhere and there's not water everywhere. If you're a shepherd, you've got to hunt for those special watering opportunities. And the shepherd takes the sheep out there and makes sure they get enough. If it's not a creek, he's got to take that bucket and drop it and pull out bucket after bucket of water for the sheep. And they drink a lot of water. It's hard work. But that's what a good shepherd does. He makes sure they get enough to drink, enough to eat, and then he lets them just chill out. They've got to chew on the food that they've digested. And he just sits and watches them. And he keeps an eye out because there are thieves and there are predators that would love one of those sheep. And for the most part, those sheep are pretty defenseless. If a wolf comes along, it's not long, and he's lunch. So the shepherd's got to make sure he's watching. If any predator or any thief is around, he's got to stand up and he's got to face them and he's got to drive them off. Remember, this is the David who said, I know how to face down a lion or a bear and defeat them. When he finally faces Goliath, he's not afraid. You know why? Because he knows he's God. He's able to give him the victory. He's done it when he's been out in the field. He has protected the sheep. He has defended them against predators and thieves. No wonder he looks at that relationship between himself and the sheep and he says, now, how will I write this in my journal? God, the Lord, is my shepherd. What does that mean? It means he's with me 24/7. Day and night. He's watching over me. He makes sure I've got enough. I don't go without. I shall not want. There's enough to eat. There's enough to drink. With food and clothing, Paul says we will be content. Our shepherd knows how to take care of our basic needs. We're in good hands. And then he goes on to say, he makes sure that wherever I happen to feed or drink, it's safe. Green pastures, still waters. Sheep aren't the smartest. If the waters are too rough and they happen to fall in, guess what? They can't get out. They drown. They're dead. So the good shepherd knows how to make sure they don't get exposed to dangerous waters. Trip and fall in that water, and that's one down. He makes sure that each one is safe. They're also not the smartest. They can go wandering off and get themselves lost. So he's got to make sure he keeps an eye on them all, counts them, makes sure they're all there. If ones are missing, he goes looking. Every now and then you get one of those sheep that's just rebellious, maverick, keeps wandering off. And the shepherd's got to keep rounding that one up. Eventually, if that little one won't learn, we're told those ancient shepherds would break a leg. Dang. Why? Because then he would have to take that little lamb and carry it around until that leg healed. And by the time that leg healed, that little lamb had learned to know the shepherd, know his voice, become attached like a puppy dog or like a kitten. And when that lamb finally got back on its legs, it would stay close. I pray this morning that God doesn't have to break a leg in your life and mine before he can really get our attention and get us close and keep us close and protect us from danger. But if it has to go that far, sometimes God will do what it takes to save you, protect you, connect you, proverbially even break your leg. Please don't, Lord. I like my legs. I don't want them broken. Don't go running off, son. Stay close. Because when you get out there, it's dangerous. There's a lion, there's a wolf, there's a bear just waiting for a careless lamb. And I'll tell you what, they've been gobbled up all around us. And David knows what it's like to lose one of those lambs or one of those sheep. He makes sure he watches over them diligently. And so he says, my good shepherd leads me in paths of righteousness. My good shepherd restores my soul. My good shepherd knows how to watch and protect and care for me. I have everything I need. And when it gets dangerous, when I got to go through the valley of the shadow of death, even there, I don't have to be afraid. Sometimes the shepherd would have to lead them through little mountain passes, through those kind of hills, steep slopes, dangerous. But the shepherd would walk ahead and the sheep would follow and they would be safe. And that rod was used to beat any predator that came close. And the staff was used to help one come up if it had kind of slipped off the pathway, maybe got himself in a hole, pull him up and say, come on now, join the troop. Join the flock of sheep. Stay with us. Don't go wandering off. The rod and staff are sure signs and symbols of the shepherd's capability of taking care of the sheep. And David says, my shepherd has his rod ready, and he has his staff ready, and they're a comfort to me. I don't have to be afraid. And then he changes the whole image, the whole metaphor. He now thinks of God as a host. You know what a host is? A person who's invited you to dinner. They've got the food ready. They've got the table set. It all looks good. It smells good. Except in that culture, when you arrived at the door, most times you would arrive with your feet and your maybe up to your ankles pretty dusty and dirty from walking on those roads that were not paved. So there'd be a bowl of water waiting for you so you could wash your feet. Or maybe they'd even have somebody there to wash your feet. Make sure your feet were clean, because you're not going to be sitting at a table like we do. You're going to be reclining. And if you've got dirty, smelly feet, somebody's going to have those dirty, smelly feet right close to their face. A good host will make sure your feet are nicely washed, that you're ready for dinner. And then they'd have a little oil with perfume to freshen up. Put it on your head to welcome you, like putting on a little aftershave or a little perfume to make sure you're ready for dinner. We like to wash our hands and freshen up. That's what they would do. And then the good shepherd, in this illustration, sets a table before enemies, not just in the safety of a home. When all of a sudden you're faced with enemies, this host is there to protect you. And you've got to catch this. In Middle Eastern culture, when somebody invited you into their home and you sat down at dinner together, they were saying there's a friendship here. There's a protection here. There's a companionship here that no matter what you're facing, I'm there for you. Remember when the two men went down to Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot invited them in, and the men of the city came ready to do some violence to them. And you know what Lot said? No, sir. They're my guests. You can't have them. Remember that story? That's normal. To have a meal, to be a host, is to take care of, to protect. I'm ready to fight your fight. I'm ready to take care of your needs, whatever they are. And David says he spreads this beautiful table in the presence of my enemies when I'm in danger. The host is there saying, sit down and eat. I want to take care of you. My cup runneth over. The table is laden. There's plenty to drink. There are plenty of provisions. You don't have to be afraid. And this David knows what it is to be afraid. You know why? Because he had plenty of enemies. The most powerful man in the land was his enemy who hated him, who sent thousands after him to kill him. And guess what the Good Shepherd did? The Good Shepherd protected him. Again and again and again. The Good Shepherd provided for him. The Good Shepherd was his covenant partner. And David knew what that was. And then he goes on to say, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. And that word follow, you need to understand, it's a little stronger than just follow. It's really kind of, they will hunt me down. The best image is like a bird dog, like one of those German short hair dogs, or maybe a Brittany. When they're out in the field and the birds are there, they can smell them, and all of a sudden, they're on point. They're right here. They're right here. That's how goodness and mercy are going to be in your life. Like a good bird dog on point. Constantly with you, showing you God's purpose and goodness. They're going to follow you. They're going to be around you. They're going to be providing for you. That's the kind of covenant relationship God has with His children. The Good Shepherd and the sheep. And then He ends it in a powerful way, unusual for the Old Testament. David's got his eye on the current reality, on this life and the next. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. That means until the day I die. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Woo! David's got a glimpse of heaven. They didn't have much of a picture of heaven or the afterlife back in the Old Testament. But David sees beyond the grave. The grave is not the end. In fact, for true believers, the grave is just the beginning of life. And David sees that. And as he writes this reflection, as he writes this prayer, as he sings this song, he's singing from his heart. He knows what it is to be a shepherd. He knows what it is to be taken care of. He knows how to do that for others. And now he says, let me tell you about my God. There's not a shepherd like Him. There's not a host like Him. He's with you. He's for you. He'll protect you. He'll provide for you in this life and in the life to come. And now I must tell you a little bit about what Jesus says, because Jesus really makes it all come alive. John chapter 10. Listen to what Jesus says about shepherding. I tell you the truth. The man who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The man who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The watchman opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name, and he leads them out. When he has brought them out, all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but they did not understand what he was telling them. Therefore, Jesus said again, I tell you the truth, I am the gate for the sheep. All who ever came before me were either thieves or robbers, but the sheep will not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. He will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd who owns the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and he runs away. When the wolf attacks, the flock is scattered. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and he cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them in also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. At these words the Jews were again divided. Many of them said, "He is demon-possessed. He's raving mad. Why listen to him?" But others said, "These are not the sayings of a man possessed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind?" And the answer is, no, sir. Nor would a demon-possessed man open the eyes of a blind, or raise somebody from the dead, or feed the hungry, or clothe the naked. But the good shepherd does. He did and he does. And so now the challenge is, Jesus is the good shepherd. But most important for you this morning is he your good shepherd? Have you looked him in the eyes and said, "Be my good shepherd and make me one of your sheep. Help me to follow close by. Help me to trust your rod and staff. Help me realize that you are the one who provides, even when it's tough, even when it's dangerous." There's a beautiful tablecloth spread over the table. There's plenty of food and plenty to drink. And he says, "Sit down. But it's dangerous. Don't worry. I can take care of you. You have nothing to fear." Hear his words this morning. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. There's nothing that will come to you that won't have to go through him first. Why? Because he's a good shepherd. He's looking for those lions. He's looking for those wolves. He's looking for the bear, and he's ready to take care of business if he has to. No wonder David could take care of Goliath. He had lots of experience protecting the sheep with God's help. And now when he has to face his Goliath, he's not afraid because he knows the good shepherd will be with him. God is his stronghold. God is his fortress. God is his deliverer. God is his provider. And he wants to be yours too. He wants you to sing his song. He wants you to write your journal entry and say, God is my shepherd. I need nothing. He knows how to protect me. He surrounds me with goodness and love and mercy. I am good in this life and I'm good in the life to come. Will you make him your good shepherd? Will you cry out with me this morning and say, "Lord, be my shepherd"? Let us pray. Oh God, with the psalmist, we've got to say this morning, who are we that you are mindful of us? We are just a speck in the universe that you have created. When it comes to planets or even solar systems, ours isn't the most spectacular. And yet you say you know us by name. The hairs on our head have been counted. You know the thoughts that we think even before we think them. Even before a word is spoken, you know it. You know when we rise up and when we lie down. You know when we go in and out. You're a good shepherd. You know all about us. You lead us and provide for us. And this morning we ask you, please, living God, become our shepherd, our personal shepherd. Help us to know you and love you and serve you the way that pleases you. Help us to have a deep, abiding confidence that there's nothing we face that you don't face with us, that you don't see us through, that you don't protect and provide us through it all. We are so grateful this morning to look up into your face and to sing with the saints of old, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.